The other day when we made our little swage block, we put a V-swage in here. I commented that that was a fairly useful profile, but there are easier ways to make V-swages than to make this whole block if that's all you need. Certainly you could forge an individual V-swage. This one I have no idea where it came from. It's an old one, found it at an antique store or a flea market or who knows what. Pretty well abused, but still completely functional. But today I thought we would look at a fabricated V-swage. Super simple and quick to make and doesn't require you lighting the forge, so if it's a hot day and you just don't mind doing a little bit of cutting and welding, this probably is only going to take you about 10 or 15 minutes. Might take me longer to explain it. So to start with, I got a piece of 1-inch square bar. I'm choosing 1-inch square bar because a lot of people have hardy holes that are 1-inch square. I already have one of these that fits my 1.25" hardy hole, and it's made out of 1.25" square bar. So to start with, let's go cut 3 pieces of this. Somewhere between 3 and 4 inches long is usually good. Sort of depends on the width of your anvil, but if you need longer or shorter, work accordingly. You might want to make the hardy shank just a little bit longer so it has more ballast to hold it in place. So I ended up cutting 3 pieces, about 3 1/4 inches square. Like I say, it's nothing magical. Now using the hardy stem, and I put a bigger bevel on the hardy stem, everything else I just took the sharp edges off. Using the hardy stem as a form, I'm just going to clamp these up. One on one face of the hardy stem, and one on the adjoining face, so they're 90 degrees off. And don't weld the hardy stem to these at this point. This is just a temporary form to make sure these give you a 90-degree V. So now we're going to weld just a little tack weld here, and we're going to weld a little bit inside, but don't weld enough that it's going to warp. You need to keep this, you don't want this to close up on you after this initial tack weld. So before you weld, you want to make sure the ends are even. You can just tap it down on your welding bench. All you need to start with, we can take our hardy shank out of there, and on the side we welded in, stand it up and try and get it nice and square and even. And that's really all there is to that. Just try to keep your weld in an area where it's not going to affect the hardy shank. And there's no weld in here. It's all on the back. Well, now you have a V-swedge. What are you going to do with it? It seems obvious that you might use this for squaring up bars, but almost never do I use one for that. You can forge them square really a lot easier than you can try to swedge them square. And you would need a V top swedge to go with it. But they are very useful for doing things like V-bit tongs, especially if you have a matching V fuller to get down in there and make the V-bit. Now a lot of these are split and spread and they're not swedged, but the older ones would have been swedged. That's the way people just used to do things, and we're going to try and show that both ways when we get around to making V-bit tongs. Another thing I like to do with them, and I probably use it for this more than anything else, and that's working on leaves. Put a leaf in there and you take this really flat looking thing that you've got and you work it a little here and you work it a little here, and you just do whatever seems appropriate, but you can add a lot of life to an otherwise kind of boring leaf just by working it down there in that V-swedge. And I use mine for that kind of a purpose quite often. Well, here's the one we made today. Still a little bit too hot to hold on to, and I may do a little wire brushing or chip some of the weld blobs off of there that don't like weld splatter on them, even though it doesn't hurt anything. But it's a very useful tool. Very simple. It doesn't need to be pretty welding. It's all on the bottom. You don't put any weld in this surface, so it stays pristine. The only important thing is to get the hardy stem in before you allow this to start to warp and deform, because these will want to open up if you weld too much on the back. As the weld cools, it contracts and it pulls these in. So a couple of quick little tack welds, get the hardy stem in there, then finish welding it up, because the hardy stem at that point is holding it and it can't contract and open up that way. Using this for V-bit tongs or for working on leaves are just a couple of examples. It's one of those tools that once you have it in your shop, you'll find that you use it a lot more than you ever would have thought, because it's just a useful, handy tool for a lot of things. If you need them in different sizes for longer, shorter, some special purpose, it's easy to make in other sizes. You can make the sides much bigger and put a smaller hardy stem in if you need to, or you can make them smaller and put a big hardy stem on if you need to. It's just a matter of what you need at the time. But making all three the same makes it a real easy thing to clamp up, tack weld, pull the clamps, move the hardy stem around to the back, weld it up, and it's just really that simple. It's taken me longer to talk about it than it took to make the thing. So I hope that's useful. If you have welding equipment and a way to fabricate stuff, this is a good practical tool. It's a good way to make one. If you don't, we will come back sometime and we will make just a standalone V-swedge, maybe a 2 V-swedge, a 90 degree, which this is, and the 60 degree that we never got done in this block because I ran out of space. And that would be handy. 60 degree V-swedges aren't something you find very often. Don't need them very often either, but it is nice to have one around. So if we're going to make one, we might as well make both sizes. So we might do that here in the next week or so. I hope you found that interesting. Hope you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up if you can. Love it if you hit that subscribe button. Remember, we're doing a drawing for the 20,000 subscriber giveaway of this little dragon head. It's still going to run for another day or so. So head over to that video and enter the drawing if you're interested. In the meantime, get out to your shop, make something. If it's too hot to light the forge and work at the anvil, might be a good day to make some fabricated tools. But stay safe, wear your safety glasses, and we'll see you for the next one.